Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and today we're going to be playing 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, commonly known as 999, the first in the Zero Escape trilogy. And I guess I should just make a reference here to Saw. This is basically Saw. So I went to play a game, uh, and I guess as this intro is playing, I didn't realize I was going to jump into this intro. This is a game that came out for the DS originally in 2009, and it was then remastered and relisted on the on the Steam storefront. And so we're gonna be playing this game and trying to get the best ending. It's gonna be bloody and horrific, and probably like a lot of these Saw games, it's going to be a failure scenario for most of the people before anything on the first run. But there is some help here in what is half visual novel and half of a escape the room game. So the sequel is also included in the Nonary Games bundle, but then the third game is sold separately. You can kind of tell that this is a DS game, and if you go over here into the options, you can really tell. Now, I am capable of using a controller, so I like that. And I don't think that there really is any real hope here to succeed perfectly on the first try.
The Nonary Game. The Nonary Game.
So, we probably don't need to change anything other than that. We'll just kind of turn down the audio to halfway, because that was a little bit too loud. Yeah, I think that's a little bit more comfortable for me. I don't like the volume too loud. Let's see if maybe even that is a little bit better. But you can definitely tell I have all the kinds of upscaling going on. I have this running on OpenGL 1080p, but being a Nintendo DS game, these default resolutions couldn't be upscaled too much, at least not without throwing it through the newest technology of having an AI computer improve the graphics more. And even in that, the deep learning super sampling, which is what I think that's called, probably wouldn't be able to fix and sharpen up these images anyways, because they're flat 2D made in a paint program images for the menu, not realistic things you would see in reality. So yeah, I do want to, before we hit start, and I'm gonna, I guess, have to just push up and down every now and then to stop the trailer from playing again, to go on a bit of a rant before we jump in the game about the Saw movies. I love the Saw movies. I think the first one's really good. They get very cheesy and different after that. The second Saw movie wasn't even going to be a Saw movie, and the main creator of the first Saw movie really didn't work on any of the future ones. So you have a series that has 5 or 6 movies, and only the first one's really good, and all the others are good, fun horror movies, but that's pretty much all they are. But they are like torture horror porn, and I've never really been able to go any further in that direction. Like the Hostel movies, I never felt like something I wanted to watch, and I don't know of any other movies to really mention where the entire movie's around that thought. But the problem with the Saw movies, and the problem with Saw traps anyways, is that Jigsaw never gives anyone enough information or enough time at all. So even in the first movie, spoiler for the ending of the first movie if you haven't seen it, it's revealed that one of the person who wakes up nearly drowning in a bathtub, is handcuffed to said bathtub, and the keys to unlock him from that handcuff and save his life eventually were actually floating in the bathtub. And when he just woke up, and because his head fell under the water, which it wasn't really planned for, or at least it didn't seem to be planned for, he just kicked wildly, pulled the stopper on the bathtub because it was full of water, and the key and the water all drained away. So that person had basically 2 minutes to supposedly wake up from being drugged, find the key, and free himself. The whole puzzle failed immediately there, and so then that person eventually ends up dying at the end of the movie because of that. And that is the consistent problem with all the traps in the Saw movies, is that you wake up, you've been drugged, you've been placed somewhere you don't know, you're usually tied into some weird contraption. No reasonable person is going to gain their composure and survive from that. Now, what we're playing is a video game, and it is a video game that has been updated a little bit, so we can go back in time and make different decisions. So we're gonna have probably an average playthrough where, best case scenario, 6 out of the 9 people survive. Worst case scenario, only 1 survives. I guess worst case scenario, nobody survives. I'm not sure how many different endings there are. This is half visual novel, so it does have multiple endings, like a lot of visual novels do. I suppose it is also kind of worth mentioning that the third game in the series kind of gets rid of the visual novel cutscenes and does them in 3D. This is going to be very anime, just from top to bottom. It's going to be crazy. Hopefully there won't be anything not YouTube family friendly in it, other than just a lot of gore and blood. But being a Japanese game, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some nudity. In fact, most Japanese games, as far as horror, they have laws against showing dismemberment in Japan, so they're kind of animated for the Western audience, but then they'll censor it back for their own country. Beheading and dismemberment and disemboweling, all not really allowed by the censor boards. But on the other side, Western people, particularly people in the United States, don't like nudity, so there might be a scene here where we see a bathtub scene or something, and it could be very well a scenario, if I was just to pick one, where somebody is bloody and dead and like slit their wrist in a bathtub, and they might be topless if they're female, and the Western audience might be more offended by the toplessness than they would be with the being dead and having killed themselves, just to pick a scenario out of the world. I've been meaning to play this game, but I really don't know a lot about it, other than it's just been kind of one of these Japanese cult hits that did well enough to at least get 3 games, and it is somewhat similar to the Saw movies, and this came out in 2009, so I would almost assume that there was some inspiration taken from the Saw movies. And yeah, I think that's all the setup we really need to know. We'll just see how big of a fool we are. We have here 30 save spots, so you have a limited amount of saves coming, and on the DS I guess you probably would want to limit people to the number of saves. I believe the second game in the series was on the Vita, so that would have been very much the portable process that would have happened. I'm playing with an Xbox 360 controller gamepad, by the way, but it's been programmed to give those prompts, so that's not a problem. But yeah, Japanese people played a lot of DS, then they eventually went to the Vita. Now they've pretty much given up on the Vita, and now they're on to the Nintendo Switch, so they kind of bounce back and forth. I just hit A to click to save. Apparently I didn't hit it hard enough. So we're going to have to get as much information about all the characters. Let's see. Because in any of these scenarios, some of these people very well might be threats, or they may seem like threats when they really aren't. There's a Netflix Japanese show called Mind, where a bunch of people, a bunch of schoolgirls or Japanese schoolgirls are kidnapped, and they have to figure out how to escape the room or figure out what's going on in the room. It's rather good for a Japanese, for a Netflix production. So this is DS, so I guess we're not going to get too much audio. I wouldn't call this full audio, and I would prefer to hear the Japanese voice actors say things out loud. Even though I don't fluently speak Japanese, I can pick up a keyword here and there, and certainly I can pick up the intuition from how it's being said. So I guess I'm going to have to do the reading out loud, and this has always been my fear as far as playing any visual novels, that a lot of these visual novels have like 60,000 words in them, and I'm not really willing to read it all out loud. And I'm a little afraid to hit the menu button, the back button, or the novel screen button right now, so let's just hit A after this. A loud noise startles Junpei awake, and his eyes snapped open.
What the?
Alright, so he does seem like he is voiced when he talks out loud. So maybe if we have a decent amount of people talking out loud and only the narration is not voiced, that'll work. Although it seems like you could probably just have had a narrator say the narration also. As they adjusted to the light, he realized, what? It moved faster. Junpei, ow. With a crack, Junpei's head connected with something metal. He rolled over and threw out his hand to steady himself, but he found instead groping at empty air. So he's on the top bunk of like a 3-bed bunk room, it looks like. Whoa. His balance lost and his still fuzzy mind struggling to understand what's going on. Junpei tumbled down to the cold gray floor. Falling out of bed in a Saw-like situation is probably the best way you could wake up.
Ouch! God damn it! Ah, what the hell?
So we're already starting with more of a adult language. And apparently, like, the real question is, why would you bother to put somebody at the top bunk if you had brought them there instead of putting them on the floor, which would be easiest, or just on the lowest level bed?
I fell pretty far.
And see, like most Saw scenarios, if he had just fallen out of bed, cracked his head, and died there, there's no fairness in that game by any means. Or if he broke both his legs.
That really hurt. Damn, my eyesight's kind of blurry. Must have hit my head. No, wait. That's not it. An earthquake. But it's shaking too fast for that.
I guess the question you would want to ask yourself is, if you're in a room like this, how long does it take you to realize that you're on a ship? I mean, it's moving. There's a round porthole-like window, and there's a considerably large amount of beds than you normally would have that are attached to both the ceiling and the ground.
Anyway.
Now, we can see he just said anyway instead of just anyway, so this dialogue is not translated literally or perfect as well as it should be. We probably will run into a scenario fairly quickly where it's just silence until we find something that would trigger Junpei or any other character that we play as. We may jump between all 9 of the characters, or we may just communicate with the other characters.
Am I?
There's a weirdly large amount of button presses
Stopped?
I have to press when it's only a couple sentences, or a couple words per sentence. When, if this was in Japanese, like, wait, it stopped, it's probably only 4 or 5 symbols. This is really short. But I imagine this isn't a visual novel designed around like having really long lines of dialogue. So we're hearing tapping that could be Morse code, but I could never understand Morse code, like, because the problem is that most people that do know Morse code, that their gait, as it's called, how fast they tap, is way too fast for an average person, or at least for me to understand. So if I was going to do SOS, I would have to go dot, 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 line, which is supposed to be the 3 times the length of a dot. Line, line, dot, dot, dot. And then maybe people would be able to get it for SOS. But that's way slower than most people would do it, because most people who know Morse code would go dot dot dot, line line line, dot dot dot, real fast. Something similar to what we're hearing. Dot 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 dot. Like, I think you get like O if you have 4 dots, so yeah. And one will hope that this is a puzzle game that if we are going to have to figure out what is being said in Morse code, we are given either a computer that will translate it for us, or a puzzle that will let us solve it, or at least a reference chart. If this is a puzzle game where we have to go out to external sources to find out information, that's going to be a little frustrating. We are just kind of fading from one scene to another. This definitely feels like a game that you could probably remake fairly easily, but I don't know if it has a big enough cult fan base to justify doing that, and they already remastered it.
What's this 5 mean?
Yeah, I don't know if you made like a full real 3D environment you could walk around and spin around and look at things, if that would really help. And often in these games where a lot of it comes down to finding hidden objects in a specific scene, by the game locking you down and locking down the camera at specific angles, it makes it easier for the game to control what the player sees.
Won't open.
So apparently we're number 5. Of course, we only know that there are 9 in the fact of the name of the game.
What's this? Is this keeping the door shut?
It's a really fancy looking door. Card.
Hey! Hello? Is anyone there?
So
Open the door!
He pounded on the door, and it didn't seem like that changed the thumping sound we're hearing.
Huh?
So we faded to black and said, huh.
What is this? A watch? It doesn't look like one.
So now we have a special watch on Earth, and you can see that in the depiction of the character we're playing as, he's definitely animated and not trying to be photorealistic.
5. That's the same as the door.
So it feels like much different than most of the Saw movies. The idea here is to get people to potentially communicate and work together, which is a very Japanese idea, is that everybody's the same, everybody should work together, where a Saw movie is from more of a Western perspective, where there's one hero and the hero is going to save the day, if there is even a hero. But everybody's going to have that rugged individualism. So I would imagine if it's locked onto them, it might have the ability to explode or contract and cut off circulation, potentially electrocute the person or chop off their hand.
Pushing something on this will work?
Yeah, just go and press buttons. That's not a good move. You don't even know what's going on.
Damn. Guess I'll have to force it off.
I wouldn't bother to force it off, frankly. What's a bigger thing of importance? Getting out of a room where you might literally starve to death, or getting a wristwatch off your wrist?
No good. This stupid thing won't come off.
It seems like they're trying to explain some things here that you could kind of just say it doesn't need to be explained.
What the hell is the deal with this thing?
And they're making a mistake, I would say, in the writing here, because they've already in the trailers shown that there were many other victims. It could have been fairly easy for somebody to find a chopped off hand with a watch on it still stuck tight, and then you would have nice little horrific imagery telling the exact same thing, that the watches don't come off.
Where am I? And why the hell am I here? Why?
This is way more dialogue than most of the characters in the first 5 minutes of any Saw movie say.
What the hell happened to me?
But they're fair statements.
My head.
And that character is named Zero. Slight spoiler, but just to his name, I suppose. That's all I know. And he is very much like the pig mask character in Saw. And he's like Jigsaw too. A person wearing a mask to hide his face. So there's probably a reason he's hiding his face.
This is... Hold on. Am I on a ship? I can't see anything.
Well, it didn't take him that long to figure it out.
If only it wasn't so dark outside.
I bet this window doesn't look outside. I bet it looks into another room.
Huh? What the... Oh, you gotta be kidding me. What the hell is going on here?
Be funny if this was a nightmare sequence.
What the hell? God damn it!
I suppose it's slightly worth mentioning that in the Japanese language, cussing doesn't really work like English does. So, like, it's more kind of how you say the dirty word. There's really only one, like, really insulting thing you can say to a Japanese person, where just saying the word, even if you pronounce it wrong, will probably get you into a fight. But everything else, if you can pronounce it right, seek a way out. This is very artsy. So we are in the third class cabin, and our camera apparently is pointing in that direction. And I guess I hit B and back. Operations during an escape. During an escape, you're restricted to an area. Your goal is to search around and uncover how to unlock the door. There are items and hints in this room that will help you escape. Use the cursor to select the location you find suspicious to search the room. Use left bump and right bump to walk around the room. Use left stick controls. Move the left stick during the escape to use the cursor. Press X to speed up the movement. Press A to search where the cursor is placed. Alright, so let's search here. And bulletin board looks like someone put a note on it about items. Once you've obtained an item, you'll be able to go to the item screen. Press Y will take you to the item screen. So we've got what doesn't look like anything of use. The item is visible in the lower left hand corner as the currently in hand. When you close the item screen, the last selected item will be in hand. If you hold an item while investigating your room, you may trigger a reaction. Try switching out items and searching different places. Press up to quickly change between things. Here we have a picture frame. Screws in the back are keeping it on, so seems like we probably need something else. Let's see. Let's go ahead and search here. What's in here? We've got a screwdriver. And so let's combine that with that. So now we have a picture. And if we combine the picture with this, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I kind of understand that. 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Somewhere around a bunch of numbers and symbols on the back. We're definitely getting some tutorial here. And I'm just skipping through this. Middle bunk bed. So we have a key. So now we have a small blue key that looks almost like a toy. Let's see. Well, I press down on the D-pad, and this is the options. So I guess we'll switch between that. Let's see what happens if we put the blue key in the keyhole. Nothing. I guess I'm gonna need the source code. To operate, all minigames are done using the left stick and A. Some minigames will require you to manipulate something, while others will require you to apply the right object. Okay. Let's just skip through all of this because we don't really need that. Let's go back. Yeah, and I'm just gonna leave a lot of this text for you to read, and you'll just have to pause the menu. I think a little bit more. Okay. Now I want to go here, and I want to. Alright, I want to look at this. And so we have it. So that should probably be 6, 3. No, 6, 8. So let's see. Let's see. Okay. So it should be something 4, something 3, and that should be 7, 4, 6, 3. I think. All right. So 7, 4, 6, 3. Did that work? I don't understand why that didn't work. Unless... See, we have apparently several other things we can do, including speed up and save. Right. The image that's being presented seems to be the same image that the icon shows. So it should be 7, 4, 6, 3. And yet it's not working, so I'm probably spinning. So I should probably just look around some more. Pipe at the end of the bed. What's over here? Pipe supporting the bed. Over here we have a small red key. Ooh.
Hold on to this key. Huh. Oh, what's up with my face?
So he just looked in a mirror? Is he looking at himself, or is he seeing someone else?
I look like a zombie.
Man,
what the hell happened to me? How did I end up here? I left work, headed back to my apartment, and...
It's kind of funny to be getting story while the tension is high. This is going to be a game that I imagine is going to have a lot of tension. Am I really going to get a flashback? Right now, I guess I am.
Man, work was rough today.
It's kind of amazing, the quality of the visuals of DS games. But man, if you go back and look at like Game Boy games, that the 4 colors of grayscale,
Did I leave that open?
maybe a dozen levels.
Everything looks okay. I must have forgotten to close it. What?
So why would someone hide their face? Well, maybe because he's gassing people, or she's gassing people. Like the common mistake here is to assume that this is a male.
I can't.
And since there are 3 games, it would probably only be. There probably is not like any major connection between these characters and Zero. If anything, these characters maybe were simply just seen on the same street as Zero.
It is a game where you will put your life on the line.
This is another great example of the problems with these Saw games. He just gassed the guy, Zero did, and now he's explaining that he's going to be put in the game, and clearly the effects of the gas affects people's memory enough that it is now several minutes after him waking up that he remembered any of these events happening.
That's right. That guy with the gas mask. That son of a bitch must have taken me here.
Now, is it better to have a flashback in that sequence so that you could have had the action that we've had up until this point first? Or is it better just to set up the story and have shown that sequence immediately, and then you wander around trying to solve the puzzle? I think you do that scene first, and thus you don't have the tension mess up. And here you can hear the audio has kind of stopped playing.
When I get my hands on him. Well, I guess there's no way to know if that was a man or not.
So maybe they put the break here just because the music was gonna get annoying if it kept on playing.
Just who was that? They said you have been chosen. What the hell is going on? Why me?
It would...
You are going to participate in the game.
If you're making a game and you're picking the contestants, they would have to have special qualities. Something about their personality or their upbringing, their education, something. Or even their physical abilities or even looks. So that would mean that this person 0 would have to have some level of ability to investigate who they're going to pick, instead of just picking like 9 random people with all the exact same qualities, and thus they would all fail in the exact same place. That would be kind of boring. So, but then the problem here is, since this is basically an anime, 0 could have infinite money, infinite resources, magical powers. So, like, you really can't assume anything, because
The Nonary Game.
there's no guarantee that this is in the real world or set in the real world at all. It's also, I think, a little weird for Junpei to be wearing plaid. Like, you really don't see a lot of Asians wearing plaid. He really does look more like what a Japanese person would animate to show a Westerner.
What the hell is a Nonary Game? God damn it!
So, am I looking in a mirror? I guess I am. So I opened the mirror, and there's a key there. Am I moving the time forward? Or every time I click on something? Or am I doing the right thing? Okay, so I think I need to combine these two. Nope. Okay, so there's some craziness to this, I think. Let's see, is there anything else we need to do? Okay. So it seems like it's a simplistic puzzle that's a little bit more complicated than that. So, as I see this, we have a... We're gonna have to switch to this. And 0 for blue, and then 2 for blue. Or, because I don't see how the 2 would combine, since the first one is a solid blue box, putting a red number 7 on top of that doesn't make sense. So I think what I have to do is 0, 2, 6, 3 with the blue cursor. So let's try that. 0, 2, 6, 3. Let's see. Alright, let's see if these keys numbers work. Hey, look, it's working. Yes. Alright, let's open it up. Yes. It opened. Looks like there's something here. What is this, a file? File screen. If you find any documents or notes during an escape, the information contained within will be available on the file screen. Press right on the D-pad to open the file screen. This is more buttons than I feel like a DS would have. Digital route. Let's see here. Compute a digital route with the following steps. First, add all the numbers in question to one another. Okay. If you end up with something greater than a single digit, then add all the digits to one another again. For instance, if you have a double digit number, add the number in the tens place to the ones place. Keep adding digits in this manner until you have a single digit answer. That final single digit is your digital root. I don't think this is really a mathematical calculation, but okay. Example, the digital root of 678 would be 3. So, yeah. No real problem there. Therefore, the digital root of 673 is 3. 678 is 3. The digital root of 1234, on the other hand, would just be 1. I guess I wanted us to do it a second time with a 0 just to be certain that you would do it right. I see. So I just keep adding numbers until I get a single digit number. Well, it looks like there's something on the back of this thing. A notebook, a pen, and a calculator. And a stack of key cards, huh? So we have key cards. There's a number written on each card. 678. Does that mean something? Yeah, it feels like I probably am going to free person number 6, number 7, and number 8 at the expense of the other two's life, if I was to guess. New material has been added to the file screen. Calculator, press right on the D-pad to open the calculator screen. The calculator can also calculate the digital root, which will be important into the progression of the story. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Digital root is 1. Clear. It seems like otherwise we just have plus, minus, multiplication, and equals, but oddly not division. Like, let's just try this. 8 equals 4. No. Weird calculator. That clearly for a DS screen they wanted the buttons to all be in the same place, but feels like you could lose the equals and just have it progressively always equal, or just throw in a division somewhere. Okay. Alright, I'm going to hit B. And then I'm going to come back here. I think there is something else in the briefcase. But how do I do this? Because it's not letting me. I want to use this key. And I can't take that key out. Interesting. Alright, well. Let's look over here. Maybe we'll find something else out. There's a source slot of this thing who looks like about the same width as those cards found earlier. Maybe I can slide them through here. Before I slide a card, I guess I just have to choose something, so let's just do it. These cards with the numbers on them, I'm pretty sure this is what I'm supposed to use them on. Alright, let's slide these cards and see if they'll work. And 6, 7, 8 is wrong. It's not working. Why? Do I need some other cards to get it to work? Need to find more cards. So how do you get to the map? You just, I guess, click on it. In the menu here, the flow shows you we're not really anywhere close to splitting. And items. I guess we're gonna have to find 9 more codes. Feel like we've probably would have died by now and been flooded completely. Let's see what's back here. Ah, we have a whole different case. Okay. I'm cool with that. So then we put the key in here. So we need to look at the code first. So let's see, come on. This should be 7485. Okay. 7485. 7485. A little bit of a lag when you succeed. And in this case, very different holders. So now we have 1, 2, 3. That's great and all, but the only other place I can think of is over on the side here. Pipe supports the bed. Do I have anything that would not support the bed? I can't look at any of these mattresses. I'll try the ladders. And this game probably isn't gonna help you too much. Like, I don't think it's gonna want to do this. We can't take down the bulletin board and see if there's anything more to see. Crawl into the pipe and find a new way out. There's nobody here to make fun of my lame jokes. Man, this sucks. So yeah, we're looking for new things. I guess we could. I don't like that you can only press up on the D-pad to swap. We can start by swiping these cards, I guess. The files. The file said something about digital root. A digital root. Huh. What am I supposed to do? There's a 5 on the door. How do I get a digital root of 5? No, not really sure about it, but let's See if this is it. I'll just slide the cards that give me a digital root of 5. Okay, use left stick and select 3 cards. After you select the 3 cards, use left stick. Okay. So all of a sudden it helps me. So what do we want? 6, 8, and 1. Wait. No. Can I not? You can't undo it apparently. So it's a kind of a simplistic puzzle here considering the severity of it. 6, 7, and 1 would give you 13, which would give you 4. Okay. So 2, 3, and 1 would give you 6, and we've got to go over to 10. So what if it was 8 and 3? That'd give you 11, and then 11 would make it 2, and then 2 would make it 4. Like, yeah, and we're missing a 9, and we're missing a 4 and a 5. 7 plus 3 would be 10, which would be 1. What if it was 13 plus 8? That doesn't work. Yeah, the third number here I think is a killer. Like, I don't think there's a way to do this. 1 and 8 gives you 9, and then 3 would give you 12, which would then give you 3. We're trying to get 5. 3 and 8 would give you 11, which would give you 2, and then another 2 would give you 4. 3 and 7 would give you 10. 2 and 8 would give you 10, both of which would just give you 1. 3 and 6 gives you 9, and then 9. Yeah, we're trying to get 5, right? 3 and 6 would give you 9. 9 plus 7 would give you 16, which would give you 7. 9 plus 8 would give you 17, which would give you 8. 2 and 6 would give you 8. 8 plus that would give you 15 or 16, which would just bump it up. 1 and 6 would give you 7. 7 plus 3 gives you 10. 7 plus 7 gives you 4. 14. Okay. So it's 1, 6, and 7. Alright, I think this is gonna work. There we go. This is a new noise. Huh? Did it just unlock? Well, the light was red and now it's blue. No doubt about it. There's nothing keeping me here now. Time to go. Alright, let's see if that worked and unlocked the door. You found it. Nice little animations. You don't see this in a lot of escape to room games on, like, cell phone games. There's actually way more story and there's actual voice acting and actual animation, where a low effort cell phone escape to room game is often just random garbage lying around. You get in a room, you find a screwdriver, you lose the screwdriver as soon as you use the screwdriver, you go 2 more rooms forward, and then you need to find the exact same image of that exact same screwdriver to unscrew some other screws somewhere else. It's not like any of the content is actually designed for that specific game. Instead, it is a case of just the lowest bidder being shopped out to make art assets to sell a game that's designed to either sell in-app purchases or play ads all over it.
Ow!
So what do you do now? Like, the ship probably won't sink if one room is flooded if you shut the door on it, but if one of the windows is cracked and that wasn't Zero who caused it to crack, then the structure of the ship is questionable at best.
My head.
So the question now will be, are we going to continue to play as Junpei, or are we going to jump to another character and then at some point have to decide who we want to play as?
Wait, is it over? Whew.
Can still hear the water running.
That felt too much like being flushed down a toilet. Damn. Well, better than drowning, I guess. Am I in a hallway?
Why wouldn't you be in a hallway?
Oh. A door. Another door.
Like, really silly. You exited a room through a door. Usually that means you're going to a hallway or a bathroom, or you're in a very, very old house that doesn't have hallways.
Damn this water. Let me go.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, it opened. What the hell?
This is a very fancy cruise liner, it looks like.
This is the inside of a ship? Well... yeah, that's what I thought. This is totally a... Wait, what the hell? A wave? Oh, shit! Shit! Okay, I gotta get out of here. Sea deck.
So it seems like the whole ship is slowly sinking.
B deck.
Would it really make sense
Hurry!
to sink a whole ship for a game?
A-deck's next.
Well, the person Zero could be crazy.
What?
And so here you have a quite the anime collection of characters. 4 people, all wearing wristwatches. Nope, not everyone wearing a wristwatch as far as I can tell. I can see the belly dancer, the girl with the tiny shirt, I guess is what you'd call that, and lots of cleavage. She's wearing a bracelet, and the guy with the white hair sticking up is wearing a watch, not a bracelet. But the freaked out guy in the business suit on the right, he doesn't seem to be showing a bracelet, so like maybe it's his wrist is covering that up. And then the, for lack of a better description, fisherman in the back, the big old guy, has his sleeves down again, so we don't see a watch on him. Quite the diversity here, really. Like, as far as Japanese, as far as they animate things, I would imagine the belly dancer girl is supposed to represent someone who's more mystical, more Middle Eastern. So skin tone will probably throw you for that, because most people in the West would just go, that's like a white girl stripper lady. And then the guy in the white hair on the left, almost certainly supposed to represent someone who is Japanese to Japanese people's eye. That's what they would see. The fisherman, he's a little bit more tan, so he's probably supposed to represent someone who's more Western, in general, like an American. And the guy who looks like the accountant may actually supposed to be African American, with the slight curl of the hair and the slight afro. But also, these might just all be weird looking people. It's a little weird to have 4 of them already out, because I maybe will in flashbacks have to play as each of these characters, and it'll be interesting to see the level of challenge of the other rooms for these 4 people to escape, because it'd be kind of questionable if all of them could solve the puzzle that I just solved. There was a little bit more to it than you would expect for the first puzzle, and it did take, and there was that pressure of the sinking ship, although maybe these people had plenty of time. But then that would kill the idea of 9 hours, 9 people, 9 doors.
People?
Hmm.
A lot of people.
And here we have, there was 4 over there, and now another 3 over here. That makes 7. So we have 8 in total characters just immediately getting merged together, which I guess is interesting. But it potentially could make a mess of a gameplay mechanic if all 9 or 8 people are in the same room and you have to kind of talk to 9 or 8 people and jump between them to have different abilities or skill sets. As for these people, maybe I see a hint of a watch on the guy in the middle, who he is either the captain of this ship or captain of a cruise liner in general, or he's just like a rich guy, and that's what he's supposed to be depicted as. The guy on the right looks like a tough detective type with his collar flipped up. He might also be more of a tough gangster. You can't see his wrists at all. And then the girl on the left, maybe you can see a little bit of red that is supposed to imply that she's wearing a watch, and she has this bright pinkish reddish hair popping up. By the looks of her dress, I would say that they probably are trying to say that she is, I would say she's probably Japanese, but I wouldn't be surprised if it turned out not to be the case, just because she's a little bit more tan than the guy in the middle, who I would say is probably Japanese, and the guy on the right seems like he might be Japanese too. I wouldn't be surprised if, in the Japanese way of this being written, they're all Japanese. It is very traditional in Japanese animation to make important characters look completely different and stand out and look wild and different, and this is a wild and different story, so trying to create characters that would catch people's eyes and that you could sell merchandise for, and that people would fall in love with, and thus you'd want to make 2 sequels to a game with those characters. There's a good concept there, instead of just having bland black-haired, brown, black-eyed Japanese people, which is what most Japanese people look like. But I will say I don't think all of these characters do show up in the sequels, but I think some of them might. There'd be a lot of talking going on right about now. At the very least, you should be saying, "Run to higher ground. The ship's sinking." But this is kind of a Japanese response, just just to not feel socially confident enough to speak up.
I guess there's another one of us now.
So she's just labeled as dancer right now, and man, she is. If you look at the bottom of the screen, it looks like she's just wearing a sash, and that is it. Just a skirt, the really high up hip line.
A dancer?
No, I'm not. You better get moving.
Oh, well, okay then.
It'd be funny if they've all been dressed into some kind of role that they don't actually have. And it would, I guess, also be funny if it turns out that there's a threat coming from the top of the ship also, so people are getting forced both to the middle deck by some threat from the top and a threat from the bottom.
Silver hair?
Huh?
So this guy's gonna be labeled Silver.
One of us, huh? What? Nothing.
Going up won't do you any good. There are 2 doors, but neither of them will open.
So this guy's named Lion. Or maybe a mistranslation there. Maybe it was supposed to be Leon or something like that. Apparently these people have all had to deal with other people who just woke up and they don't really want to explain themselves much.
Wait, hold on. The doors won't open?
Come on! Aren't you coming? You gotta hurry!
A little bit more animation there from Pink Hair.
That's 9 of us then.
9? I didn't count 9. Including myself, there was 4 on one side and 3 on the other side, which would be 7. And then I would be 8. So unless you're including 0 as the 9th person, I don't know who the 9th person is. And then we have this guy named as Prince.
All of the cards are in hand.
Now, I don't know in Hanafudo Japanese cards how many suits there are or types of cards, but in standard poker style cards, there were 13 cards. There were 9 that are numbers, I guess. Sorta. No, because the ace really is never depicted as a 1. And the king, queen, jack would be, I think, 11, 12, and 13. So maybe there are 9 cards in regular poker, but I don't think there's a reference there being made.
Wait! They're gone.
I just left them.
Just what is going on? There's an old man like a lion, a girl with pink hair, and a prince, and I have no idea what they're talking about.
You can definitely tell from the introduction and scene of those characters, though. Those kind of imagery would help sell a game like this. It would catch my attention and lots of Japanese people's attention. Where if this was just a boring game with boring looking characters doing simplistic escape the room puzzles, or even medium difficulty escape the room puzzles, it wouldn't really get enough people to play it in the first place to even review it or say whether it's good or not. And you can pretty well tell that because any Japanese game or any game that's more of a portable game, something that would be on a cell phone these days, they don't get any reviews or coverage by mainstream video game media and journalism ever, and they almost certainly never will. Some for good reason, because there's just way too many games like this, and most of them are bad. But a lot of times, if Japanese games in general just don't get covered in the West as much as they should, and a lot of times Western games don't get covered by the Japanese game reviewers, of which there's not too many in the first place, very well. So a game like this could easily just fall through the cracks. So these two are just question marks. So they're just labeling this guy as a question mark. I would call him accountant. He's apparently crazy.
What was that all about?
Although it would be kind of funny if it turned out that he doesn't speak English, or he just recognized you.
Hey! What the hell are you just standing there for?
This guy you're calling Mountain.
Didn't you hear him?
Now, in Japanese, each of these names probably would translate to something that would sound like a decent name, in the sense, a great example of that is lots of people know that Sakura means cherry blossoms. I don't think it's the word for the tree specifically, but Japanese is a very subtle language anyway, so they may call the tree and the cherry blossoms Sakura, and it not really matter most of the time. But very often you'll have characters named Sakura in anime stories, and what does that really mean? Nothing. So, but there probably is a Japanese name that means mountain, and there certainly are some level of that certainly in Western names, particularly like Christian names. If someone is named after a character in the Bible, the inherent traits of that character in the Bible is sometimes impressioned into that name. Often there's been lots of books and just ideas that have been established based around names too. So yeah, that's kind of the similar idea. In Western English language though, you tend not to have somebody named like Yosemite to represent a mountain, or something named something that actually means something else. Although you do have characters like Brook. Brook is a fairly common name these days, and brook means stream in English. I'm talking quite a lot here, and the story's not moving forward.
The doors on A deck are no good. We gotta check the doors on B deck.
Okay, what deck are we on?
Got it? Now go!
I guess he at least gives you some instruction. Did he just push you?
Hey man, that was dangerous.
Huh? 4?
So we have apparently some kind of scanners on these doors.
This one says 5.
Hmm.
They're the same.
Hmm.
The room I woke up in had a number on the door just like that.
Hmm.
You too.
Apparently they haven't communicated much so far.
A number upon the door. I opened it, ran down the hallway outside, and found myself in a rather grand room full of stairs, as I suspected the rest of you.
So did all these people just meet up in this room just a few minutes ago, apparently? Apparently everybody else also could escape without solving a puzzle.
Me too.
Pink hair in particular, I think would be... She's obviously supposed to be the youngest character, so she'd probably have the most trouble solving puzzles.
Same for me. There was a door with a number on it.
And if you wanted the most shocking twist, pink hair would be 0.
Yes, we all saw the same thing. That's not important. We need to hurry.
You think I don't know that lady? Open! Damn it!
So Silver is trying to open door
Not
5.
opening. This damn thing won't even budge.
Now we're getting a screen on top of it.
Out of my way.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to force a metal door. Nor, if it were the intention of Zero to just kill people, would he go through this trouble. He wants you to play along and entertain somebody. I wouldn't be surprised if there were cameras here and he was selling off the footage on like the dark web to a bunch of rich people.
There must be some other way. This looks just like the device next to the door in that room earlier.
We're getting a little mist in the background as an internal dialogue.
So that means this door is probably locked too. But still.
I'm a little surprised nobody's figured out yet. You probably just take the watch and put it in front of the scanner, and if it's your door number, it opens. Seems fairly obvious.
Are there any other doors?
I will say that at least in the first Saw movie, there's nothing so obvious. There aren't really hints to a solution that actually ever get used. Instead, it's a lot slower, and it's a lot more about figuring out what the puzzle even is in the first place. There is like one thing at the beginning of the first Saw movie that is very puzzly, but then the rest of it becomes more about the characters and the story. He had scarcely taken a step when, at the top of the stairs, next to an ornate clock embedded in the wall, he saw a person. It was a girl. So she's number 9. You can see that she has a watch. She could very easily be 0. And yeah, high boots, colorful offsets, sleeves and socks, a long dress, although not really that long of a dress, but yeah, a scarf. Again, take it or leave it, I suppose, as to whether you want to assume that they intended this to be a Japanese person or a Westerner. Of course, if I were to go and switch it to the Japanese language, all these characters would be speaking in Japanese, and it would certainly feel more like they were supposed to be Japanese people at that point. She looked about the same age as Junpei. He froze, unable to look away from her face. He wasn't confounded by her beauty or something equally silly. No, there was another reason he couldn't take his eyes off the girl. They either know each other or they're related to each other. Junpei had seen her somewhere before. He couldn't quite remember where, but he knew. He knew he'd met her before. So they do have some connection to each other. Probably this whole game is like some revenge for something that happened like years ago, and somebody probably had like a heart attack in the middle of the street, and they all just ran away out of fear instead of helping the person, or something along that line. The girl too stared at Junpei, similarly stunned. Her responses suggested that she'd seen him before as well. Of course, having all the characters so visually different contrasts very much from all of these people potentially being at the same point or same place in their lives that they would somehow be involved. That's a funny way to translate I would translate it more like oh, not question mark ... question mark.
Huh?
And I would translate huh to HUH. Without saying a word, Junpei walked slowly toward her. She didn't move. It's almost as though she was held in place by some sort of magical spell. As Junpei stepped down onto her landing, the spell broke. Now, there might be some time mechanic here, and like these two know each other because somebody's gone back in time and gone through these events before. We won't have that for the gameplay, the ability to save and reload as you can in mini games where you can save scum, but I think the story might play into that also. No sooner had he set his foot down than the whole ship shook for a second time. At least they translated that right. The quake caught the girl unprepared and she fell. Watch out. Moving on instinct, Junpei leapt to catch her, or so he thought. This is such an anime trope. They fall down the stairs. She ends up on top of him instead of the usual anime trope, although maybe she is on the ground and he's on top of her. Like the usual anime joke here is that somebody falls down the stairs and ends up groping the girl unintentionally. Oh, her face was closer than it should have been, a mere inches from my own. For Japanese, I think the groping certainly is a big issue when you do it unintentionally and or not invited, but there is also just a big issue of Japanese people don't want to touch each other in general, and they definitely don't want their faces so close to each other.
Yeah.
He was flat on his back and she landed squarely on top of him. The girl seemed as confused as he did. Her face suggested she hadn't fully recovered from seeing him. And the reason why you would animate this scene is because you just want to draw this character's face. She's clearly going to be a favored character in the story, visually, by the artist at least. For a moment, they seemed to stretch. That seemed to stretch for a very long time. They stared at one another. The ship stopped shaking. It's funny, we're almost having the beginnings of a romance anime story. Or probably, it would be better instead of referencing it to anime. I will inherently throughout this whole series reference it to anime, but it'd probably be a bit closer to reference it to a manga, since these are mostly still images. And I guess it is worth mentioning that there is a new technology called Live 2D that can take a image like this and fairly easily, I won't say it really is that easy, but it can make 2D images kind of wave back and forth and give a life to them by applying kind of a wireframe into the programming. So you could take, for instance, in this image, her strands of hair, and you could have them bounce up and down, just back and forth individually, to make her look more alive. You could have her eyes widen and shrink to make it look like she's kind of blinking. You could have her entire body kind of shifting back and forth, and it works extremely well. It definitely is probably the newest bit of technology to improve visual novels in the past decade, but it won't be universally adopted for sure. The ship stopped shaking. Everything was quiet. Water could be heard from the bottom of the ship, lapping faintly at the walls and ceilings, but eventually that faded as well. The silence was complete, a thick, muffling blanket. And yeah, the game is not playing any audio. At last the girl opened her mouth.
Oh my gosh, is that you, Jumpy?
Jumpy. Interesting. Jumpy. Jumpy. Her words echoed through Junpei's head, and suddenly his memory returned.
Akane.
Akane, so at least we have two names. By the way, if you're hearing thunder, that is not in the game, that is outside my house. Why hadn't I realized it before? So here we are having a flashback of what she looked like before, and it's quite long hair for a younger person, and her face is rather long and stretched out. They're definitely not going for the moe anime style that is more popular these days, where younger characters have less realistic human proportions, and even characters that are specifically supposed to be like 25 or 30 still get drawn in a way that is often determined by lots of people to make them look like they're approaching 17 at most. But the way this is drawn, I would say it's kind of off too. There's just way too much hair, and it's way too long. Her face is way too long. Her ears are way too long. She's being depicted here wearing a tie, which would put her in like junior high at the youngest, with a jumper, which probably puts her somewhere in junior high again. But perhaps this is also supposed to be high school. It gets kind of weird as far as what the age of our character is supposed to be and what the age of these characters are supposed to be now. And how many years back would this encounter have to be for somebody to potentially forget? If this is what she looked like a year ago, that wouldn't really make sense. So it would have to be somewhere around 5 years, and it would have to be that our main character and Akane are in their mid-20s or older. The girl was Akane Kurashiki, which is a very Japanese name, so I wasn't just BSing about how Japanese often animate themselves as white. Now, the reason, or very pale at least, the reason for that is Japanese people are very pale quite often, but also in manga, which would be the foundation which a lot of anime comes from, and thus be the foundation in the way a lot of animation is done in Japan. Most characters are just outlines on a white background, so yeah, not a ton of tanning that goes on in Japan either. She and Junpei had been friends in the childhood. They'd gone to elementary school together for 6 years. Maybe. Like, I never could have wrapped my head around how the elementary school system breaks up in Japan, whether it really is 6 years from like kindergarten to 6th grade, which would be 7 years, and then there's like a middle school for 3 or 4 years, and then there's a high school for 3 or 4 years, and then on to college. But I kind of question whether, if they had gone to elementary school for 6 years, whether she would be wearing a tie even as like a senior 6th grade student in elementary school. That feels to me much more of a middle school thing, but I could definitely be wrong about that. And I definitely know that the young kids in kindergarten are dressed in uniforms that are very specific and very distinguishable. And like, kids in Japan are usually wearing uniforms at all times, so yeah. And yeah, they usually are wearing sailor style uniforms that do require ties for both genders. But what is she doing on the ship? Her soft eyes were only inches away from his own. He could feel the warmth of her face. Yeah. She has, like, it seems like almost less hair as an adult now than she did as a kid. But yeah, there's definitely some tracing there that they should have softened up her features to make her face look more childish. Of course, I did go on for about 10 minutes talking about a single image. But then again, I don't think the game is going to be that long, so might as well mention it. And certainly when you're talking about visual novels, you may only get 100 images in total, so you have to squeeze as much entertainment out of every scene as you can. Feelings he thought long forgotten began to work their way to the surface. He could feel his face heating up. That's also very Japanese, is to have a flushing response when either drinking alcohol or feeling embarrassed. And Junpei is clearly a Japanese name, so if they were going to translate this to make these Western characters, they would have translated the names too at that moment. I'm going to hit the adventure screen and novel screen. Doesn't seem like it changes much, but we can do that. Let's go to the menu. Let's go ahead and save. And save here. We're at B deck central staircase. No, I don't want to return to the title screen. And file. Seems like we didn't look at any of these files, so these are all just going to be hints, and maybe we won't need any of these. and probably we won't have to read any of them ever. And then let's look at the flow. So we did some novel, and then we did an escape, and now we're in a novel, and then I guess we'll do another escape, and then we'll probably hit a decision point, at which point we will have to go one direction or the other. It's kind of interesting that they threw in the dancer character, and then they're throwing in the true love path also, because there's definitely are people that would prefer just to look at the dancer character and attempt to date her instead of going the true love path, which there probably isn't actually a true love path in any actual romance. If anything, the Akane character is just being introduced so that she can be killed off, and maybe at the end of the game there's some way you can save her. It looks like we will split, and then we will merge back together, and then we'll have a decision to split again, and one decision will send us through one path versus one decision sending us to another path, and then those two on the left will merge again, and one decision on the right will send us to a different path. And if we go to the decision on the right, then our only option is to go down, forward, four more scenes, which either means the path on the right is the win scenario, and it's really hard to make that choice, or the path on the right is a lose scenario, and there's just several places where you can have a lose scenario. If I was to guess, the path on the left is shorter, so there might be a slightly good win solution on the path on the left, and maybe the standard solution is the one in the middle, and there might be a possibility of a win or loss solution here. But what you can definitely tell is there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paths at the end here, so that's not saving 9 people. Unless we save somebody here, and we save somebody here, which would be 7, and then we save somebody here, which would be 8, and we are about to save someone else. And I guess stop here, which is a fast forward button, which makes no sense, would take you back to the main menu, but I don't know why you'd want to go back to the main menu. We are 30 minutes over. I thought we could power through this and only play this for an hour. Maybe we're going to make an hour and 30 minute episodes going forward. Well, I'll just have to decide that on the fly. But so far, so good. But also a lot of content here I would not want to play through a second time. Even if the escape the room puzzle's randomized and it was a different puzzle before, the solution would still be pretty generic and pretty easy to figure out. And it doesn't look like the game is really timing you in any way. If it is, I'm going to leave the game paused, and that might ruin the whole experience for me in the first place. But yeah, I think this is probably a game that you want to play through once and then use the rewind points to make different decisions, but not start the whole game over, because that's not going to be worth people's time. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.